Good morning, everyone. We are going to be analysing life expectancy, and in particular, we're going to be comparing life expectancy in the United States to other developed countries and other countries in the world. Can you see up here? We've got our key things. So, as we've done in the past, we're going to read two passages, two shorter passages that focus on health. And as you read, I'm going to ask you to use the highlight tool, which I believe is up here. There it is. And so you can choose whether you want to use text, color, or you can just highlight and then just use a highlight color and just go for it wherever you find a word that you think is relevant. Okay, so remember that, use that as we watch and listen to the story here. Other things, if you want the original article from Time magazine, you can actually click, if I can find it here for you. Here you can click on the title, there it is, and you can actually get to the article with normally some images there, and then there's some other links and even video as well. So after you've read the thing and you've added some comments, if you want to add a comment, you go up here and all you do is you highlight the section that you're interested in. So again, my thing's not working very well here, but if you can find, there you go. And then you can add a comment like so right here, and then that comment links to that section that you're in. So I would suggest reading these articles, I'd say about 5 or 6 total, where you get to an idea or a phrase or a section that is connected to the main subject. So, first article, the average life expectancy could reach above 90 years old. This was an article on February 22nd, so pretty recently. While most people born in rich countries will live longer by 2030, with women in South Korea projected to reach nearly 91, Americans will continue to have one of the lowest life expectancies of any developed country, a new study predicts. Scientists once thought an average life expectancy beyond 90 was impossible, but medical advances, combined with improved social programs, are continuing to break barriers, including in countries where many people already live well into old age, according to the study's lead researcher Majid Ezzati of Imperial College London. I can imagine that there is a limit, but we are still very far from it, said Ezzati, estimated that people would eventually survive on average to at least 110 or 120 years. The longevity of South Korean women estimated in 2030 is largely due to investments in universal health care, he said. South Korea also led the list for men. It's basically the opposite of what we're doing in the West, where there's a lot of austerity and inequality, he said. Ezzati and his co-authors used death and longevity trends to estimate life expectancy in 35 developed countries. The calculation is for a baby born in 2030. The study was published online Tuesday in the journal Lancet. Women were ahead of men in all countries. Behind South Korea, women in France, Japan, Spain, and Switzerland were projected to live until 88. For South Korea, men life expectancy is expected to reach 84. Next were Australia, Switzerland, Canada, and the Netherlands at nearly 84. At the bottom of the list, Macedonia for women at nearly 78 and Serbia for men at about 73. While some genetic factors might explain the longevity in certain countries, social and environmental factors were probably more important, as Zati said. The study estimated that the United States, which already lags behind other developed countries, will fall further behind by 2030, where men and women are projected to live to 80 and 83. American women will fall to 27th out of 35 countries from their current ranking of 25, and men will fall from 23rd to 26th. The researchers note that among rich countries, the US has the highest maternal and child death rates, homicide rate, and is the only high-income country without comprehensive health care. The researchers also predicted how much longer 65-year-olds in 2030 would live. They guessed that among men, those in Canada would live the longest, surviving another 23 years. Among 65-year-old women in 2030, they estimated South Koreans would live the longest, another 28 years. Now what we've got is a second article. After you've read this second article, see if you can answer this question. Explain how the two articles may be related. Our second article's main headline is "Sitting Too Much ages you by 8 years." So think about that. And again, it's another time article. You can click on this link right here to get to the article in its original format. Sitting too much during the day has been linked to a host of diseases, from obesity to heart problems and diabetes, as well as early death. It's not hard to understand why. Being inactive can contribute to weight gain, which in turn is a risk factor for heart attack, stroke, hypertension, and unhealthy blood sugar levels. On top of everything else, sitting has detrimental effects on cells at the biological level, according to a new report published in the American Journal of Epidemiology. In the new study, scientists led by Aladin Shadyab, a postdoctoral fellow in family medicine and public health in the University of California, San Diego, traced sitting's impact on the chromosomes. They took blood samples from nearly 1,500 older women enrolled in Women's Health Initiative, a long-term study of chronic diseases in postmenopausal women, and focused on the telomeres, the tips of the tightly packed DNA in every cell. Previous studies have found that as cells divide and age, they lose bits of their telomeres, so the length of this region can be a marker for how old a cell, and indirectly the person the cells belong to, is. The researchers compared telomere length to how much the women exercised to see if physical activity affected aging. Earlier studies have also looked at telomere length and exercise, but they relied on asking people to report on their activity levels, a process that's often inaccurate. Shadyab instead relied on more objective readings of physical activity from accelerometers that the women wore for 1 week. Initially, he did not find any relationship between telomere length and physical activity levels, but when he focused on women who did not meet the recommended 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity daily, he began to see some interesting trends. Among women who didn't get the daily half hour of exercise, those who spent more time sedentary, about 10 hours or more, had shorter telomeres than those that spent less time sitting every day. The amount of shortening added up to about 8 years of aging, the scientists estimated, meaning that inactive women who spent more time sitting were about 8 years older on average than those that were inactive, but spent less time sedentary. Women who got the recommended amount of daily exercise showed no association between how much time they spent sitting and their telomere length, suggesting that physical activity might counteract the shortening that occurs with aging. Our results suggest that the combination of being sedentary and not engaging in enough physical activity to prevent the telomeres from shortening leads to the shorter telomere length, says Shadyab. Women who did not meet the physical activity guideline were sedentary for at least 10 hours a day were biologically older. Their cells are aging faster than those of women who were less sedentary. Exactly how much physical activity is needed to negate the aging effects of sitting on the cells isn't clear, but Shadyab's study shows that sedentary behavior has potentially aging effects on the cells, and exercise may be one way to combat that aging process. So, what I'm going to ask you to do, if I may, is now write this. You're going to write this as a Google question on Google Classroom, and you're going to answer these 3 prompts. So first, explain how the 2 articles might be related, and in your view, why do you think the United States has a relatively low life expectancy in comparison to other developed countries? And I'd like you to discuss that with other students, either as a whole class or whether we do it in smaller groups, but there needs to be some discussion there so you've got some ideas and some evidence to back up those ideas. That evidence is going to come from websites but those websites need to be checked out to see if they are reliable sources of information. And then finally, just a personal aside or a personal reflection. Do you exercise enough? And say why or why not. So the guidelines today is recommended about 30 minutes every day of physical activity, vigorous activity. So again, say yes or no, and if it's a no, say what you could do to improve it, and if it's a yes, say what it is you're doing, and any other things that you might want to add when you reflect personally on these two articles. That's it. Thank you very much.